Hello and welcome to Tracy Mommy Reads. I am back again with another book review. Today, I am going to be talking about the book The
The
Vanishing
Vanishing
of
of Josephine
Josephine
Reynolds.
The
Vanishing of Josephine
Cooper
Reynolds.
by Jennifer Moorman. Okay, so I think I admitted to this. It was something that I found out about myself since starting the channel and reading, all these books, is that I have this like affinity, to books that have a time travel element. I'm drawn to those books naturally, and like it's really an organic process because I legitimately do not like search for time travel books. I happen to like read like blurbs, on the books, and it just so happens that the blurb, it sounds interesting, so I get into the book and it ends up being really amazing. I will say there has not been a book that I have read so far that had a time travel element to it, or multiple dimensions or whatever, that I have not enjoyed. So most of the writers so far have they've gotten it right, as far as making it seem believable or plausible or entertaining. So yeah, this book, I guess the genre would be like fantastical realism or something like that. So let me tell y'all what it's about. Get my notes. There's this woman named Josephine who her husband has passed away. So she's a new widow. Or, it may be, I don't know how much time has passed. I don't know if it's like been months or if it's been a year. It's like not any longer or shorter than that. But he was like the love of her life, and she's just really down and sad about it, as one would be. And her sister has suggested, she's trying to get her out of her funk to kind of start just getting out and living a bit more. There was this house that was in their family, and it had belonged to her great grandmother, right? And her uncle ended up getting the house. So, they were like salty about that because they didn't think he should get it. Well, I guess for good reason, because it ends up going into foreclosure, and they, could end up losing it if someone in the family doesn't step up. So Josephine's sister feels like, this is a great way to, get you out of your funk. This gives you something to do, something to focus on. Because low key, Josephine, as much as she, grieved her husband, a big part of that grief was the fact that she really had not carved out a life for herself. Like everything she did was wrapped up in them being a couple, right? So her sister was like, you get to make all the decisions, you get to do what you want to do, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of find yourself and discover what you like and what you want to do or whatever. So Josephine ends up agreeing. They go to the house, and she like remembers like visiting the house when she was a kid, and the times they had there, and it needs a lot of work, but she can see the potential. So she's excited yet also paralyzed with fear because it's like she doesn't really know where to start. Well, one day when she was there by herself, she heard some music. And she was just like, where is that coming from? So she's kind of, it's like an old Victorian type home. So she's just like, going through the house like, what is that? Where is that? And let me pause here. That drives me crazy in books and movies. Because if I'm by myself and I hear something, no. I'm not going to go investigate. You know what I mean? Unless I have a weapon, and especially maybe a home or a location that I'm not familiar with, because you don't know if you're going to get trapped somewhere. At the least, she could have like called somebody that, hey, come over here with me so we can discover this together. But no, she goes down to the basement and she hears this music, and she discovers like there's in the basement, part of it's been boarded up, and she like looks through it and she pulls a board and she's able to like get the door open, and it's a whole like bar type situation, club or speakeasy behind this door that she never even knew was there. So it was at the basement of this house. And long story short, it ends up being, as they discover, it was a speakeasy, and their great grandmother had it in her house during Prohibition. So they would have people down there drinking a little spirits or whatever when alcohol was illegal in these United States of America. So her grandmother was a rebel, right? So anyway, she's just really excited about that find. Not sure what she's going to do about it or what she can do, but her first order of business is, oh, let me back up. The first day that her and her sister go to the house after they've closed or whatever, the HOA people, because you know they're lovely, pop up, and it's like, you know, you need to get this house together. It's also Halloween. You're going to have to decorate because that's what we do in this neighborhood. And you need to fix this and that. I mean, like, lady, can I get in here? Right? So to appease like the HOA person, she goes and, to go get a door because like her uncle just had put up some like random door that did not fit the style of the home or the neighborhood. So she goes to like this, place where they have all these salvage antiques and different things like that. And ironically enough, and this one I knew something was going on. She goes to that place and the guy has the exact door that was on the house when it was built. Okay. And that's important to note because as it says in the blurb, the door is pretty much a portal, right? So the first day that she has it, you know, installed or whatever, after the guy installs it and she goes out to make sure the key works. So when she opens the door to go back into her house, like present day, it's 1927 and she's back with her great grandmother, you know, and that's who's in the house. And when she goes and she starts walking around, they're like, you know, there's people in there like, hello, can we help you? Like, who are you? So she's very much like able to interact with these people or whatever. And she comes across a younger version of her great grandmother in that house. And it's just really, the thing that I really liked about the book that endeared the book to me is because I am a sucker for like historical references and especially like family legacy and that type of thing. Like I love looking through old photographs and the stories that they tell, you know, or hearing about, you know, things that a relative that lived 100 years ago did, or, you know, those type of things. I love that type of stuff. So for her to get to go back and talk to like her great grandmother and see how she lived and, you know, all of that, I was just, that sucked me in. But then there was a even, you know, deeper thing happening because there was like a time frame. Like every time she went back, she was losing a part of herself in the present. So then suddenly it became this race because she is looking, every time she goes back, not only is she losing a part of herself, like events are changing for the history of their family. And there's one particular incident that could end up taking her great grandmother's life, which means her grandmother won't exist, which means her mother won't exist, which means she and her sister won't exist. So she's having to, you know, race against the clock to make sure that things are stay the way that they were supposed to stay. You know, like if the grandma, the great grandmother is like, oh no, I'm not going to go to the party. She's like, you got to go to the party because this is where you're going to meet the guy, or you're going to do the thing or whatever. So yeah, it was just really well told, like as we're jumping from the past to the present, just even the descriptions of the way the women dressed back then and just the tone of the world, you know, versus coming forward to present day. And you know, also it was interesting being in that same house, seeing how it looked and everything back then to present day. And yeah, there was a speakeasy in there and she got to go to the speakeasy when it was at its height, you know, see all the people that were crammed into there and, you know, was smoking their cigarettes and drinking their alcohol and all of that. And a crazy thing, like there's this guy in the past, in the like 1927, who liked her, right? And she liked him as well, but can't have a relationship with him because it don't work like that. Because she was the only person that could go in and out of that door and see the present or see the past. Like if someone else went out to the front porch in 1927 and they went back and it was still 1927, nothing ever changed for them. And it wasn't a thing where, like, I don't know, I remember in the book, The 7-Year Itch, where that apartment was kind of like a portal to the past, but it didn't happen every day that the woman walked into her apartment. Some days she would walk in and it would just be her apartment. This particular book, Josephine, like, there was something she had to say for it to be 1927 when she went into the apartment. And I forget what it was, but it was a saying or something that was actually carved on the door. And it was something that her great grandmother had said. So that was how it worked for her. Yeah, so it was a really richly layered story. It was very well written. And in the end, it was such a cute thing that happened that I don't want to spoil for anybody, but let's just say she meets like the like, you know how she's like her great grandmother's descendant. She meets a descendant of somebody that she had met back in 1927, and I just think it wrapped up the story perfectly. So yeah, so much I liked about it. What I didn't like about it, the only thing that I can remember that I did not like about it, we never found out what happened to her uncle. Because it was like he lost the house, he stopped paying rent, he put that ugly door on there, and he just kind of vanished. So I have my theories about that, even though the author never even addressed it again. Hopefully this is going to be some sequel, or she's going to try to tell us where he's at, because I'm really just not interested. I'm not that invested. But I have my theories that maybe he went, like it happened to him, because that door was on there, right? And he took it off and took it to that salvage yard. So I'm wondering if he got stuck back in, another era or another time and decided to stay there. I don't know. Or maybe he thought he was going crazy and he was like, I'm just taking this door off, putting another door, and I'm leaving town. I just did not like that. Like how we never heard, like, what happened to her uncle? Like, where was he? Because that would have been her mother's brother or cousin. It was somebody that was in her mom's generation. And we just never heard what else happened to that dude. So that was weird. But everything else, it was chef's kiss. I really, really enjoyed it. I love reading stories like this because, it's cool to be one of the cool kids and be up on all the book talk books and, read have some guilty pleasures with the mafia romances, or read books that are on the New York Times bestseller, but I feel like books like this are like hidden gems, they're by authors that are not that popular, but the writing and their stories, it reminds me why I fell in love with reading, because there's just such a deep story there. There's, it's engaging. It's full of imagery. You care about the characters. You care about what's going to end up happening. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. All those elements are things that I think all readers look for when they're reading books. But sometimes you get caught up in like what's popular, and I feel like some of those books, not all of them, but I feel like some of them lack substance. It's the authors are cranking out, 5, 6, 7, upwards of maybe 10 books a year. They're doing all these series and these sequels, and you just like kind of overloaded on their work. And like I mentioned last week with the sequel to A Perfect Marriage. It was a duplication, I felt like, of the first book. It was nothing new, nothing that, you know, made the reader, at least me, like really even care about the story or the characters. But books like this, like they even though the time travel element may not be something, what do you call it, like that's not original by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, like I was mentioned, the 7-year itch, there's a door that the woman goes in and it's another time or whatever. But having said that, I feel like she was able to take maybe something that has been done before and create such a beautiful story, and something that in a lot of ways felt very new and very original. So, yeah, there's that. I'm sorry, I'm gushing. But as you can tell, I really, really enjoyed the story. The trigger warnings, I mean, it's a fantastical type story. I don't know. I mean, there's talk of death, you know, like, and they kind of, you know, go through her feelings about her husband dying. So if you recently lost someone, reading about her grief may trigger you. But outside of that, I don't really recall, you know, anything that would be too triggering, unless you just, like, again, have some type of religious beliefs or things where you don't want to, you know, delve into people traveling through time and all that kind of stuff, then maybe stay away from it. My takeaway from the book, I feel like for Josephine, when she was trying to find her way and determine who she was without her husband, having come face to face with her great grandmother in the 1927s, you know, back when women, they were attached to their husbands, and they could only be a wife, you know, and they weren't allowed to do much else. Seeing how her grandmother started that speakeasy and she had her own group of friends and she was living her life, I think it was important for her to see that, you know. A lot of times we don't realize how things in the past, you know, women did things, or even men, you know, did things to kind of set you up for your future, for their descendants. And for me, I feel like with this particular story, it gave Josephine permission to be who she was, you know, and that it was okay that she wasn't married anymore, that she wasn't attached to a man, that she still had a full life, and there was a lot that she could, you know, do with that life. So anyway, if you have read The Vanishing of Josephine Reynolds, let me know what you thought about that. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like this video and go ahead and take this opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Thanks again. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.